What I'd like to do today is share how emotional intelligence can help us become better leaders and why this particular skill set is essential along the way. By emotional intelligence, I mean how we manage ourselves, lead ourselves, and handle our relationships. I'll go into more detail later. Just yesterday, I spent the morning with one of Australia's largest banks, meeting with the CEO, his team, and some of their top potential leaders. They were all eager to learn about emotional intelligence and leadership. The reason for this is that they realized that by working on these qualities together, they could elevate the entire organization and, in turn, grow the business. It was a strategic decision. There are two kinds of strategies: exploitation and exploration. The former is exemplified by the co-CEOs of BlackBerry. Remember BlackBerry? That illustrates my point. They were pioneers in the smartphone industry and dominated the market until other players like Apple and Samsung entered. BlackBerry kept improving their keyboard while failing to see how the market was shifting. In fact, back in 2007, Time magazine mentioned a new word, Bissell, which captured the frustration people felt when someone would pull out a BlackBerry and ignore the person in front of them. Times have changed, and today it's not about BlackBerry anymore, but iPhones. The other strategic approach is exploration, exactly what Steve Jobs excelled at. He focused on anticipating and creating the next big thing. Although it may seem counterintuitive, I argue that emotional intelligence is what makes us better leaders. I first realized the importance of this skill during my college years. I grew up in a small farming town in California's Central Valley, and the outskirts of Perth reminded me of that place. This town wasn't particularly remarkable, but I managed to get into one of America's most competitive colleges because they sought to diversify their student body, accepting a kid from a public school rather than an elite prep school. Once I arrived, I met a guy with perfect scores on every college entrance exam, but he struggled to manage himself. He couldn't wake up on time, missed classes, and never submitted papers, taking 8 years to finish his degree. He had a high IQ, but lacked the self-management skills necessary to succeed. Years later, at my 20th high school reunion, I encountered the most successful person from our class. Back in school, he was an average student, far from brilliant, but an exceptional human being. He was kind, a great listener, and easy to be around. 20 years later, he was a senior vice president of one of the hottest companies in the booming cable TV industry. At our 40th reunion, I learned the rest of his story. He had started his own company, sold it at the market's peak, and now lived on a golf course in Florida. This man had high emotional intelligence, but not a particularly high IQ, which makes perfect sense to me. Recently, I met the CEO of BlackRock, the world's largest investment company, managing trillions of dollars. He was puzzled and asked, "Why do I hire the brightest people from the best schools, yet still end up with average performers?" I shared my answer, which stems from research I conducted after writing about emotional intelligence. I became interested in how it relates to business and recalled something my graduate school mentor had written. If you want to hire someone, don't focus on their IQ, personality tests, or business expertise. Instead, look at your company's top performers in the role you're hiring for and compare them with average performers in the same position. Identify the skills or competencies that differentiate the top 10% from the rest. This is called competency modeling. Most leading companies use competency models, particularly for senior executives. But these models are often proprietary. I managed to access data from around 200 of these studies. What I found was that across job types, emotional intelligence was about twice as important as cognitive skills and technical expertise in distinguishing top performers. The technical skills and knowledge you learn in school are what gets you the job. Those are the baseline requirements. But emotional intelligence is what determines whether you'll be a star performer, a great team player, or a leader. The higher you rise in an organization, the more emotional intelligence matters. For top-level positions, 80 to 90% of the competencies companies identified as distinguishing stars were based on emotional intelligence. This makes sense because at higher levels, you're not relying on your technical skills anymore. Instead, you're managing people. The art of leadership is about getting the best out of others. A recent study of engineers showed that IQ had no correlation with success, as judged by their peers, while emotional intelligence had a significant impact. Why? Because once you reach a certain level, everyone is just as smart as you are. Emotional intelligence, on the other hand, remains a key differentiator. One cognitive ability that stands out at the top levels is big picture thinking. the ability to recognize patterns and understand how a change here will have a ripple effect elsewhere, or how a decision today will affect things years down the line. This skill helps you shape strategy, but to execute that strategy, you need your people. To lead effectively, you must communicate, persuade, listen, inspire, and motivate, all of which are emotional intelligence skills.